We've been through a lot. If we can weather this, we can weather a lot of things.
It's been a year of dramatic change for these farmers after their land and homes were intentionally flooded last spring. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the breach of the Birds Point levee in southeast Missouri. The levee sits here near the point where Missouri, Kentucky, and Illinois come together, an area where last year historic flooding along the Mississippi and Ohio rivers reached critical mass. On May 2nd of last year, the Army Corps of Engineers blew up portions of the levee to help relieve pressure on floodwalls at river cities like Cairo. The breach came after days of waiting and watching the waters continue to rise. At the center of that drama were the people who call the spillway home. We met several of them last spring and talked to them again recently to see how things are going 1 year later. It looks like any other road in Mississippi County. But for Ray and Roy Presson, this view now has a whole new meaning. Rewind 12 months and it was a much different picture. Water as far as the eye could see. When the Army Corps of Engineers decided to blow the Birds Point levee, the Pressons were right in the crosshairs. Some of the 130,000 acres that were intentionally flooded is the land that's been in their family since 1910. They've lived and worked here their entire lives.
It was hard, and up until the time they blew it, we just really believed it wasn't going to happen.
We just had faith that it would still be here and we'd be able to farm.
And that's exactly what they're doing. The Pressons feel fortunate. Their 2,400 acres sit at the high point of the spillway. They had damage, but their most important resource, the land, was still intact. Not everyone was as lucky.
We knew if we get the water off, we'd get a crop planted. Just no problem with that. Today's machinery, you can get across the ground in a hurry.
The Pressons lost their entire wheat crop last year, $250,000. Crop insurance covered only half that, and they couldn't plant corn last year either. This spring, both are in the ground at a price. In the aftermath of the flood, insurance on their wheat doubled. And with the crops planted, the cleanup continues.
We had a lot of ditches silted in, but that's fixable, more so than if your land had really been damaged.
Breaching the levee changed some things forever. This was where Ray Presson lived, but now for the first time in more than a century, he and his family can no longer call this house home.
It's very hard. Yeah. Chances are we'll try to build a mound out here and put a house on it eventually.
For now, more waiting. The Pressons are eagerly anticipating the day the levee is rebuilt to its pre-blast height, 62.5 feet, to ensure all their hard work doesn't get washed away.
For this area, that's about the most important thing we can have.
The Pressons will never forget what happened here last spring, but they're not dwelling on it. After all, they have a job to do.
It wasn't long after the flood, they had the Joplin tornado, and you had to feel fortunate that all we had was a flood.
We just have faith that we just keep going on, do what we do.
The Corps of Engineers plans to have the levee restored to 62.5 feet by the end of the year, weather permitting. The Corps stands by its decision to breach the levee, saying recently the move prevented more than $100 billion in damage to the river system.
I was right there.
Keith Huke has already survived one nightmare, waking up early Wednesday morning to find himself in the middle of a deadly tornado.
I heard glass tingling and I pulled the quilts over my head. And I felt my hands were getting wet, so I pulled the quilt down.
What he saw left him in shock. His home of 10 years twisted and broken around him, and much of his neighborhood turned to rubble. Huke believes it's a miracle he survived.
You wouldn't believe I'm still here, but I have a guardian angel.
Utility crews and the people who lived here are now racing the clock, trying to get as much done and as much salvaged as possible ahead of any more potential bad weather.
Try to find all the pictures I had, all the arrowheads I had, the frames. I found them some in the backyard.
City leaders admit the threat of more rain and wind is unwelcome. They spent Thursday working with the National Weather Service and insist Harrisburg is ready for whatever Mother Nature dishes out.
We're making hay, I guess, while the sun is shining. But if the weather again turns, we're still going to be out doing what we need to do to keep this city safe.
Those who didn't lose their homes completely were urged to secure everything as best they could to try to prevent any more damage.
Board up any windows or holes that may be in the property, get those tarps on. We want to keep out as much water as possible.
Now the most anyone can do is wait and hope for the best.
I'm scared to death. My faith, my son will protect me.
It means a lot. I mean, we don't want to put any pressure on the boys, but we want to make sure that they have a good game and for the town, try to recover.
I think after the last couple of days, probably this is a chance for the community to maybe regroup around a positive activity, and maybe the timing of this game might be just about perfect, I think.
During the holiday season, a lot of us will be attending parties and maybe having a cocktail or two, but how much is too much? Recently, we put 4 people to the test to see just how well they know their limits with alcohol. News 3's Emily Finnegan has our story.
Cheers! Cheers!
With that toast, our 4 participants began about an hour of drinking at Global Gourmet in downtown Carbondale. Jared, Joe, Courtney, and Cindy range in age from 23 to 33. Jared, Cindy, and Joe classify themselves as social drinkers. Courtney says she rarely imbibes. They all had lunch before our experiment, but have different body types and chose to drink different liquors.
It's pretty good, just totally good.
Their task, have a couple of cocktails until they felt they reached the point they would not be safe to drive. After the first 15 minutes, all 4 had at least 1 shot and were working on their second drink.
Warm.
Yeah. Fuzzy. A little bit of a buzz.
Yeah.
Despite that, all of them kept drinking. At the halfway point, 30 minutes in, Jared, Joe, and Cindy were all working on drink number 4. Courtney was just behind on her 3rd drink, and this is where things stood.
Would I feel like I could drive a car at this point? Yeah.
I feel tipsy, and I feel like I could drive right now, but I feel like if I got pulled over, yeah, it would be done.
I feel warm, but I feel like I'd totally drive. There's no way I could drive right now.
Then, with help from Carbondale police officer Zach Street, we got our first idea of how drunk our participants really were.
What you do is you're going to take a deep breath, okay? You're going to blow into it.
This is not the breathalyzer that gives the official results in a DUI arrest. That machine isn't portable. It's administered at the police station. The PBT, or portable breath test you see here, is sometimes used in the field to get a rough idea of a person's blood alcohol content.
Do you think you can drive right now?
No, I would never drive.
Okay. That's a good thing. Keep going. Right there. And officially over.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I feel like I could, yes.
Keep going till you're a click. And we have a new winner.
When did we ever do
There you go. Higher you thought you'd be?
Oh, way higher.
You thought you could drive?
No, I feel like I could totally drive right now.
Really?
Now again, that was only halfway through our experiment. Coming up tonight at 10, see what happened when we put our 4 participants through field sobriety checks and ran a blood test. The results are incredibly eye-opening. You won't want to miss it.
Right here.
It may look like just a drainage ditch.
Was not a rock this time.
But this is the spot where 6-year-old Maddox Crane and 8-year-old Gage Mitchell discovered buried treasure this week.
Well, he was just going across the bridge and I was behind him and I just looked at the dirt and see if I could jump over. and I just saw a necklace sticking out of the ground.
That necklace was a World War II-era dog tag with a ring attached. The boys dug it out of the dirt and took it to the woman who runs their daycare to settle a dispute.
We argued who got to keep it, and then we were going to tell Pam who got to keep it. We're going to ask her, actually.
But when Pam Geralds cleaned off the dog tag, she realized she knew the real owner, Bill Blyer, a longtime acquaintance of her family. Bill and his wife Dorothy were surprised to get her call.
Yes, I was the one that talked to Pam, and she was telling me she had this they had found, said William C. Blyer. I said, that's Bill.
Dorothy's parents owned a house that bordered the drainage ditch, and the high school sweethearts lived there for a short time after their marriage in 1946. The last time they saw the dog tag or the friendship ring Bill gave Dorothy when they started dating was when Bill returned from the South Pacific 66 years ago.
When he went into service, he took the ring with him, and it was on with his dog tags. It looks as if there's some engraving inside, but we couldn't read it. I'm not sure what that was.
Probably says, I love you.
Probably does.
And while Gage and Maddox didn't get to keep their treasure, the Blyers did bring them some ice cream as a thank you, which seemed to be a pretty good consolation prize.
Well, I think that's great, and I'm sure glad they found it.
In Carterville, Emily Finnegan, News 3.